the answer I would give is Excel, but I'm not going to give you that answer. The RevOps tool I probably would take, and it's not because it's the greatest tool ever by any stretch of the imagination, but I use it all the time, and that's Zoom Info.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to our official first episode kickoff with me hosting the RevOps and Bucks podcast. And I'm super excited to have Matt Callahan here, who is the VP of RevOps for OnSent. And we're going to talk about some pretty cool stuff, but I kind of wanted to have Matt introduce himself and give us a little bit of background, and then we will just jump into the fun stuff.
Hey, Tana, thanks so much for having me on your show here. A very exciting opportunity. So my name is Matt Callahan. As Tana said, I'm VP of Revenue Operations at OnSent. I really started my career in RevOps in IBM a number of years ago, and got to see what it's like to work with a gigantic tech company and the RevOps function. Since then, I was at Xerox for a few years, and then some smaller SaaS companies before landing here at OnSent. We are a middle market fragrance manufacturing company. And so I get the opportunity to, work very closely with the leadership team in my RevOps role, and really excited to be back with you, Tana. We got to work together for a short period of time a couple of years ago, and so great to reconnect.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for hopping on today too. I mean, we've had a little bit of a chance to kind of catch up where each other has been since we both kind of moved spaces. And I'll probably put a perfume order in with you eventually when I know what you make over there. But we had a really cool topic that you wanted to talk about today, which I think is something that all of us in RevOps have to deal with all the time, is desert island KPIs. So one, I would just love to know, what is your definition of desert island KPIs?
Well, it's just, sifting through the noise, right? We in RevOps, we deal with so many different KPIs across the business, and it's easy to get what I like to call KPI fatigue. So for me, Desert Island is really filtering out to the top handful of things that are most important, the things that truly move the needle, the things that we as a team can actually influence and impact. And so that's really what it's all about. So, I think of, between 5 and 10 that are particularly important to me. Obviously that list is going to vary by the business that you're in, right?
Absolutely.
Manufacturing fragrance has a set that I use daily. It's not going to be the same for SaaS. So, but anyway, that's what I call Desert Island KPIs.
Got it. So here's a good question for you to start out. If you were stranded with only three KPIs for the rest of your career, no dashboards, no Salesforce CRM, no spreadsheets, just three numbers, what would they be and why?
Yeah, great question. So I think number one, how much new opportunity, new pipeline we're creating every week is important, right? So weekly pipeline creation would be probably one of those.
Why is that
And again,
important?
well, again,
And
that's
I mean, all of us know why this is important, but from your perspective, why, for anybody that doesn't understand why we're so conscientious about pipeline creation?
right. So there's so much focus on sales activity, right? As I'm sure uh, will resonate with you, measuring things like meetings and calls. And for me, there's no better way to really gauge the true activity than, getting a new opportunity, getting what in our business we call a brief from a customer who wants to buy a new fragrance. And so it's all about creating that pipeline on an ongoing basis. And so for me, that's how I think about, activity of the sales team. Um, that's why I think it's so important. I think another one that's important to me, and again, this is going to vary by business, but looking at the number of new logo clients we launch each month is important for us. That is fundamental barometer of growth, right? And the health of our growth engine is how many of those new clients we're landing.
And then for new clients, are you considering that because more new clients that you bring in, there's gonna be the expansion opportunities and then your renewals that are coming in or just repeat business? Because I know you're in a different business model than some of us are in SaaS where we've got that, automatic subscription stuff happening.
Yeah, yeah, right. No, exactly. Our business is completely transactional. So we really we rely on new clients. We have a sort of a natural attrition rate, and so getting new customers in the door, landing them, particularly in our world, which does a lot of business in the B2C space. Um, getting those new brands on board, the ones that are, getting all the attention and TikTok and so on. That's particularly important for us. So,
Get some
uh,
influencers out there on TikTok. That helps everybody right now.
that's right. Exactly. If I had to pick a third, I would just say bookings. I would say monthly bookings, you know, um, in our business, it's again, what we call briefs. These are projects that customers come to us with that say, we would like you to create a new fragrance for us. Here's what we think the fragrance should smell like, and here's approximately how much, if you're successful, we would be spending on it each year. So that's a booking for us. Anyway, there's
Yeah,
there's a
you
there's
got you
there's a
gotta
number
make
of others,
money.
but those would be probably the top three right now that I would call out.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess all that really does pertain to just generating revenue. As long as the revenue is coming in the door and we're not balancing it out with the churn or cancellations or whatever that is that in our businesses, then that's what you want to drive is just revenue.
Exactly.
So for you, working in RevOps as long as you have with different business models and things like that, what do you think is the most overrated KPI right now? Like in RevOps that you see either because I see so many different things on KPIs and metrics on LinkedIn, and everybody thinks this is important. And sometimes I see things that my brain can't compute, like what is this and why?
Yeah.
So is there an overrated KPI, do you think, that we
Well, again,
sometimes
and I know this is going to be maybe sacrilegious to some, but I think I think counting number of calls, number of meetings. So activity logged in Salesforce. Um, it's not that I don't think it's important. I just think it tends to get overemphasized sometimes. Um, and while it's very easy to log activity in Salesforce as a barometer of actual success and progress, I think it can be misleading, right, in both directions, right? People who go out of the way just to log activity, um, maybe they're not actually generating strong results. And similarly, I've seen lots of examples where someone is a very strong performer in terms of delivering results, but maybe they don't always log all their calls. And so that the activity metrics is certainly something that I think can be overrated.
I would agree with that. Do you think that there is a healthy balance, like, especially for leaders? Because I mean, we've both been in a company where it was like, you needed to log every meeting, every call, every email, and it's counted, but yet the salesperson has not generated a sale in 8 months. So it's like, where is that healthy balance for leadership to be like, "Okay, like, this makes sense, but are we overdoing it?"
Yeah, yeah, no, I think it's a great question. I think, look, at the end of the day, what matters is results, and we can see the results of someone on the sales team based on their level. Again, I go back to how much pipeline are they creating, right? That to me is a much better metric of their activity, right? And then of course, are they converting that activity right into bookings, into sales? Obviously those are numbers we can see very clearly. Um, and then there's other metrics that have to do with the quality of their relationships with their clients, um, harder to measure, but also very, very important. Anyway, I just think there's other ways to really gauge the performance of each member of the team and to hold them accountable, right, for those results.
Yeah, absolutely. So, because we're talking about pipeline and pipeline generation a little bit, here's one for you. For pipeline coverage ratio, I know that we've had different, different people have different thought processes on that. When you get your quarterly or yearly goal and you're thinking pipeline coverage ratio, hero or villain? Make the case.
I wouldn't say either. Look, it's such a blunt instrument. It is such a blunt KPI. 3 to 5x. Um, it depends on so many different factors, right? It depends on the kind of business. It depends on obviously the sales cycle, right? The shorter the cycle, the lower that number needs to be. The longer, the higher it needs to be. Um, and obviously the win rate um, is probably the most important factor. But then there's all kinds of other factors like the quality of that pipeline, right? I might have 5x pipeline, but if it's all, you know, enterprise level deals, okay, that are going to take longer to close and probably have a lower win rate, right? Factor needs to be higher than that. As opposed to if they're small deals, they're all SMB, right? They have a shorter sales cycle, right? I can probably get away with a much lower uh, ratio. So again, to me, that factor, that KPIs, it's all over the place, and you got to put so many different conditions on it to really have a confidence that it means something. For me, it's very hard. So I wouldn't go so far as to say a villain, but it's not something that to be honest with you, spend a lot of time looking at because of those factors.
Yeah, I was gonna say the villain for me would be the fluffy pipeline of like all those
Sure.
deals that have just been in there fluffed and they're not real or they're not real amounts. And it's kind of like, oh, we can say we've got 3 times our pipeline, but how much of that is actually real
Yeah.
versus, we just need to fluff it because that's what we're required to do at the moment. So I guess there is.
Right. And then of course it depends on the distribution of the size of those deals, right? If they're all more or less the same size, then factors like pipeline coverage are a bit more meaningful to me, right? If on the other hand, I have 1 or 2 deals which are gigantic, and then a large number of small deals, that coverage ratio it just loses its value, right? So anyway, a typical blunt, KPI that a lot of people like to use, but I think you got to dig a bit deeper to get any kind of value from it.
Yep, that would make a lot of sense. So I want to go into you have so much experience in RevOps, which I have always appreciated working with you and getting your point of view on things. And because you've worked under sales excellence and RevOps and kind of in different spaces, is there a big change or jump or difference between working in a sales excellence space into RevOps? Like, talk about like career pathing because I know I get a lot of questions, especially from people that want to break into RevOps. So if we stick in that, what is this part of RevOps from your experience and tenure in these different spaces?
Sure, sure. Great question. So first of all, I'm not big. I'm not big on titles. Okay. Um,
Because they all are different and we all end up doing the same thing anyway.
yeah, exactly. So super high level answer to your question is I view sort of RevOps and sales excellence as uh, maybe two sides of the same coin. Because it's fundamentally about helping the sales organization be more successful, right? Whether you're in a RevOps titled role or a sales excellence titled role, it's about bringing best practices to bear to help the sales team. Um, so when I was in the sales excellence role, I was doing a lot of the same things that I was doing in my RevOps role. It's about laying down the foundation, right? Laying down the foundation for a world class sales organization. That means looking at the tech stack, right? Looking at the underlying data that tech stack contains and is managed, right? Looking at the process for managing sales and pipeline each week, each month, It's about, setting up sales territories optimally. It's about designing a comp plan, right? That's going to maximize performance, help, motivate the team to maximize performance. So all of those things that are, sort of traditionally in the RevOps space, those are things that I focused on as a sales excellence leader. Sales excellence leader, you're working very closely with the CRO and the sales team, just like you would in a RevOps role. Hopefully, again, you're sort of bringing to bear, best practices from your own experience working with sales teams, working in other, companies. But to me, they're fundamentally the same.
How did you
Uh,
break into RevOps? I'm curious, and this is from my own space of like, how did you break into RevOps, and what was one of the key things that helped you learn it faster?
yeah. So I broke into it when I was with the global sales group at IBM a number of years ago. Um, there was at that time, what I would call a kind of sales operations division group at IBM that I was part of. In those days, we didn't have the cloud, right? So everything was under this architecture called client server, right? You had a big box. It was called a server, and you had lots of little boxes
Don't age yourself here.
called
Like,
clients, and they were actually connected by wires. You actually had your cables that
oh my
connected these
goodness.
boxes together. And a guy named Tom Siebel created a program that he called Siebel, and it was like the first real CRM. And so that's what we used at IBM in those days. That was our CRM system, and in those days, IBM did I want to say 100 was it like $140 billion of revenue. Um, we had something on the order of 20,000 salespeople around the world.
Wow.
Um, and so that's kind of how I started in this business.
And
Um,
what made you stick it out? What's your favorite
Really
part of
stick it out.
RevOps?
Well, I love working with sales teams. I mean, I always have, right? Um, I love the character of a typical sales team. I love the excitement of winning a big deal, right? And helping the sales team win a big deal. Um, I've also always just been kind of analytically focused, so I'm sure that has a lot to do with why I've stayed in RevOps. I like data. I'm a data guy. Um,
And
and
we
I
have to
love
deal with
and
a
I
lot
love
of data.
Yeah, exactly. And I love solving problems. And I think fundamentally the role of RevOps is to solve problems. In fact, the most successful folks I've ever seen in RevOps are those who really embrace challenge, right? And embrace the opportunity to solve problems, right? And so, for me, that's really what keeps me going. That's what gets me excited. Um, there's so many things that need to get fixed, right? So many problems that need to get solved, and so many challenges every sales team has, right? And the RevOps team's role is really to help solve those. So
Absolutely agree. I love to say we are that weirdly defined person that thrives in chaos versus everybody else around us is terrified of chaos, but we're usually the ones trying to fix the chaos or we create the chaos. So it's like the double-edged sword on everything we do. Um, so thinking of that, so we've seen different, I have my perspective on like how RevOps done right. If we were to paint a picture of saying, if you were putting a team together or RevOps done right, what does that look like for you if you could like wave a magic wand or paintbrush and say, this is RevOps and this is how it's ideally done?
I think it goes back to the analogy of building a foundation, right, for a building, right? We have a building, and it's the sales engine of this company. And we, RevOps done right is the foundation of that building is firm, it's solid, it's flat, right? And it therefore enables the higher structures to be put in place. So again, foundation for me probably starts with the tech stack. What are the tools we have in place, right? Are those the right tools, right? Um, do we have too many tools? Do we have tools that we don't need, right? That we can get rid of? That's important. And the data, right? That's inside those tools, right? So the tools and the data is kind of the starting point always for me. And then on top of that is the key processes, right? Weekly, monthly, quarterly processes that RevOps enables, right? There's a weekly sales management process, right? Where we're looking at the pipeline, we're looking at opportunities, we're understanding where there are key gaps. We're forecasting the business for the month, for the quarter, right? We've set up a model of sales territories for the team that's optimal, that sort of maximizes where we're going to get white space opportunity in the marketplace, and we've designed a comp plan that goes along with that. We've done our ICP modeling, right? Ideally, we've also built a kind of a white space model, right? That's very detailed down at the client level. And we have a process whereby we're looking at leads, right? We're qualifying leads, we're moving leads through the funnel. So all the work that goes into setting that process up as well. Very, very important. And hopefully we're also have a process whereby we're reviewing the performance on a regular basis. We're making adjustments to the model, to the plan as we move along through the year. So it's all about building that foundation. It's all about committing to that foundation that I think makes RevOps work the best. And so for me, RevOps done right, that's fundamentally what it means.
And do you feel and that I agree with you also because I think that that is like the foundational part of what we have to do in general as an org. Do you have a thought on like RevOps organization, like your counterparts that you have to work with? So for example, we usually see, the hierarchy of RevOps where you've got enablement, you've got your ops people, you've got business analysts, you've got, system people. Is there any philosophy you have with that? Because I know we love to try to do it all, but we can't be the doer of all things sometimes. So we have to have other functions with us in RevOps to be able to execute on all of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think you need somebody. You need somebody on the tool side. You need like a system admin type um, to sort of manage the tools. I think uh, you need someone who works very closely with the CRO and the sales team on weekly again what I call sales management process. So pipeline maintenance, forecasting, um, and so on. And then I think it doesn't necessarily need to be a different person, but you also have to have a strategic function as part of RevOps. And this goes primarily to the planning for the new year, right? And the budget process that we do every year. So determining the right mix of skills on the sales team, um, and just kind of building out that plan, and then also constantly looking at the underlying tech stack to decide what changes do we need to make, what additions should we be making, right? Um, and that may be that's actually I found one of the more difficult tasks I think in RevOps, which is deciding what the next tool is going to be,
Absolutely.
or whether there should be a new tool, if any.
That's my
Um,
worst fear is, "Oh, we see this new tool."
yeah, exactly. There's so many bright shiny objects out there, um, and being very judicious about that, I think is very important. It's and it needs to be, you need to, I think of it like you're actually running a P&L, right? You are on the hook and responsible for helping to deliver, the number. and that also includes the cost associated with that. So optimizing optimizing the RevOps team and its structure is very, very important.
So that's a good question because we do get this often. How have you felt in your experience that to move from a tactical viewpoint to a strategic seat at the table? Because not all RevOps, people that are in RevOps end up being able to have a seat at the table with a voice to make decisions like that. So do you think that there is a skill set or things that people can do to start maybe being able to lean more into a strategic point of view?
But I think it's yeah. So I think it starts with acting like an owner, right? Whatever role you're in, you're an individual contributor on the RevOps team. You can still act like an owner. Something as simple as recommending ways to save money. Okay, it could be a small thing, right? But you've got a set of tools, right? And you decide that you can get something done without a particular tool. You raise that up. You say, look, we can save $5,000 if we got rid of this tool, right? That's a very simple example of acting like an owner, and it's those kinds of things that I think are most important and can get you a seat at the table, right, with leadership. If you consistently demonstrate that you feel like you're an owner, and you feel like every dollar that's spent is coming out of your pocket, and therefore you're going to optimize how money is spent, and at the same time focus on the things that are going to drive growth, drive revenue, right, drive bookings. That to me is what's most important, and that's moving from a kind of a RevOps individual contributor, director, VP. To me, it's all about taking on that mindset, and recognizing that you are accountable, and you're empowered to make better decisions that are going to help this company succeed. So for me, that's what that's all about.
Yeah, that's great advice. I love that. So, as a fun closer, we're going to do a little lightning round all around your desert island stuff. So, okay, one RevOps tool that you would take to a desert island if you could only pick one, and you still actually had to work while you were on the island.
Okay, so first of all, again, the
I think I know what you're going to say,
the
but
the answer I would give is Excel, but I'm not going to give you that answer. The RevOps tool I probably would take, and it's not because it's the greatest tool ever by any stretch of the imagination, but I use it, all the time, and that's Zoom Info. I use Zoom
oh, I
Info
was
all.
not expecting that. I
Yeah, I
was
use
not
I use Zoom
expecting
Info
that
a
at
lot. I
all.
think again, they're far from perfect for sure. They've got a lot of gaps in their data, but if I'm trying to quickly put together lists of prospects, I find it to be a very handy tool to do that. And then obviously, the quick and easy integration with other parts of the tech stack like Salesforce and HubSpot and so on makes it particularly useful.
Well,
So
see, you wouldn't get all of those if you were on the island. You would only get Zoom Info. That's the only tool that you get.
okay, well, I could handle that. I figure it out.
All right. So, one person in the RevOps world that could be on the island with you, and it
You mean
better
in
be
terms of
me.
role?
I'm totally kidding. I
One
don't know.
person?
One person in the RevOps world. We have a big world of RevOps people.
But do you mean like an actual person, or like a role?
Um, I mean, if you don't have a person in RevOps that you would bring, then let's go with a
Okay.
RevOps role that you bring to the island.
Um, I think, boy, what a question. How
Hey, I
about
had to stump you on something this
how
session.
about the I'm going to say the HubSpot administrator because that HubSpot has always been a thorn in my side. So
Yeah, I feel your pain on that one. Absolutely. Okay, one last question. What's the first thing you'd build when you got back to civilization that is like what's your RevOps must fix it first when you come back?
one of my frustrations, I'll be honest with you, is I just find there's lots of things in Salesforce that are just always broken and like don't consistently work. Things
I think that
like
was
for
actually one of my questions.
things like for example, Einstein activity capture. I can't tell you how many times I've been on the phone with the help desk at Salesforce trying to get that stupid thing to work. And it's one of those things that should just automatically work. You should never have to even think about it. Um, so so for me, just like making sure all the basic stuff, basic plumbing in particularly Salesforce, that would be the first thing I'd want to fix when I got back from the desert island.
I love that. Yes, we had many conversations about Einstein activity capture because we had to count meetings, emails, and calls that never showed up correctly.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time today. It's been so
Of
much
course,
fun
Tana.
catching
Thank
up with
you.
you. I loved the topic. I think that, we've got a lot of really great stuff here. So hopefully everybody that's listening will figure it out. If you want to tell everybody what your LinkedIn is and they can reach out and follow you, and then
Yeah,
thank
absolutely.
you.
My LinkedIn is what is my LinkedIn? Boy. I don't know what my
I
LinkedIn
mean, it's got
is.
to be your name, right?
It's my name.
Matt
I think if you look for
Callahan.
Matthew Callahan, you will certainly find me. Let me see. Let me pull it up here. So I am at so it's LinkedIn at Matt hyphen Callahan, MATT hyphen CALLAHAN. That is me. So look
Wonderful.
forward to connecting with the audience here. And yeah, this has been a great fun, Tana. Thank you so much for inviting me to this. Great opportunity
Absolutely.
to get back together with you and talk about fun RevOps stuff.